And we're now recording.
Thank
If I
you.
may, Jill, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to bring to your attention that you're not visible on camera.
Oh, thank you. I had it on, I turned it off. Thank you for reminding. Okay, thank you. This is a meeting of the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Tonight we have one item, and it will be the first item that we will take. On each item, staff will present first and the applicant second. Next, the public will be invited to comment, and then the board will discuss. Just go over the voting rules briefly. An affirmative vote of 3 or more board members shall result in the passage of the motion. An applicant cannot be approved with less than 3 affirmative votes. If the first vote taken on a motion to approve or deny an application results in a tie, 2-2, the applicant shall be allowed a rehearing. A tie vote on any subsequent motion to approve or deny shall result in defeat of the motion and denial of the application. And a vote of 2-1 or 1-2 on any motion shall in all respects be considered a tie. We have one item that we're addressing tonight. Is there anything else, Robbie, or can we just proceed?
Nope, just the one item.
Okay. Let's get to the number. So this is, can you give me the number, Robbie, since I'm not right
Of
here?
course, it's BOZ 2026-00003.
Thank you. We will proceed with that application.
Okay, and let me share my screen real quick.
Sorry, I'm rusty. Let me go to silent.
Welcome back, Jill. Okay, again, this is docket number BOZ 2026-00003. The address is 505 College Avenue, and this is a side yard wall articulation variance as part of a proposal for an addition to reconfigure the interior and integrate 2 currently separate upper story areas of the existing single-family home. The applicant is requesting a variance to the side yard wall articulation standards for a principal building in the RL1 zoning district. The resulting side yard wall articulation qualifying wall length will be approximately 67 feet, where 40 feet is the maximum allowance and approximately 33 feet exists today. Section of the land use code to be modified, section 971 or 9710, sorry, have it. 9710 Boulder Revised Code 1981. And up on the screen, we have the location of the subject property that the board is considering a variance to this evening. You can see it is a corner lot with College Avenue being to the south and J Street being to the west. And then we received several letters of support as a part of the application material. The board did see all of those. They are with the posted packet. And the little green stars that you see up on the screen are the location of all of those letters or the neighbors that are in support of the variance, including the property that is arguably the most impacted, the property directly to the east. And a little bit of zoning information and background on the property before I get into the variance itself. Again, it is zoned RL1 and the lot size is around 9,250 square feet. That is above the minimum for RL1, which is 7,000 square feet. But this property is somewhat unique in that it is relatively average in width, but it is long. So it is long north to south, front to back, or back to front. And then it is pretty standard, typical, if not substandard in width from east to west. But the overall lot size is around 9,250 square feet. The home and the garage, as it sits out there today, was permitted back in 2013 through a building permit. This property also went by the address 1150 J Street, in case anybody or any of the board members went and did a little research on it. It may also have been under 1150 J Street, but today it is addressed as 505 College Avenue, and all prior permits to 1150 J/505 College were done by way of the prior owner. And then the required and approved setbacks for this property, there is a 25-foot front yard landscape setback that's south along College. And then you have the 25-foot rear north setback. And then there's also a side equals front, also known as a secondary front along J Street. That's the west yard. And then you've got the 5-foot interior side yard to the east. So as the property or as the house sits today, it's pretty much right into the buildable area or the building envelope of this property, with the exception of the rear yard where the garage is. But everything else is, for the most part, built right up to the minimum setback requirement. And then both floor area and building coverage are going to be under the maximum allowance for this property. There is no expansion of building coverage because the addition to the home is being built within. There's no expansion out of the footprint. It's essentially filling in where there's currently no floor area. And then the building coverage, there's no expansion out, but the floor area, there is an increase, but it still remains under the maximum allowance. And then solar access, side yard bulk plane, and height. Due to the design and location of the project, there are no issues for those specific standards known at this time, and all of that will be verified at the building permit. And then, of course, the side yard wall articulation compliance depends on the outcome of tonight, since it's a side yard wall articulation variance. And then this just gives you an idea of kind of the street view. The upper left image is from College, and you can see the downward slope of both the street and the property to the east or right in that upper left image. And this is also the front of the house or the south of the house. And then the upper right image is the J Street view. And this is the secondary front or the side equals front. And you can see the topography somewhat goes up to the right. And then below are the existing elevations, just so the board could have those on hand in case we need to look at them. The lower left image is the existing south elevation or the front of the house. And then the existing east elevation, which is again that J Street elevation. This is the secondary front elevation. I'm sorry, the interior side, the east elevation, the opposite of J Street. And then I also wanted to show the aerial of the house. You can see the left image is the aerial of pretty much of the house from just a year or two ago. And you can see the subject house. And then it's kind of looks like it's split into two areas. Those are the two separate upper story areas that the board is looking at this evening that the applicant and the owners essentially want to connect. And then you see the detached garage at the very top of the aerial. And then because topography somewhat plays a role in everything, I wanted to show the contours or the topographical changes in the land of this property. And you can see essentially the north part of this property as well as the southwest portion, and then the property to the east. There is a somewhat significant drop in grade, and the contours are 1-foot contours. And as you move right, it gets lower, if that gives you an idea of kind of the land that's out there today. And then side yard wall articulation variances are somewhat new to most, if not all, of the board members. So I just want to do a kind of a quick recap of what it is and kind of what the purpose of it is. So the purpose, and this is all directly out of the Title IX Land Use Code. The purpose is buildings with tall sides may impact privacy views or visual access to the sky on neighboring properties. The purpose of side yard wall articulation standards is to reduce the perceived mass of the building by dividing it into smaller components or step down the wall height in order to enhance privacy, preserve views and visual access to the sky for lots or parcels that are adjacent to new development. And a kind of simplified explanation of this, I often refer to it as the 14-14-40 rule, meaning what qualifies as a wall that contributes to side yard wall articulation. And essentially the 14-14-40 rule is saying that any wall or walls within 14 feet of a side property line, in this case, that would be both the east and the west property lines, that rises more than 14 feet above finished grade shall not span cumulatively more than 40 feet. So if a wall is within 14 feet of a side property line and it rises more than 14 feet above finished grade, it counts towards that 40-foot maximum span. And the request tonight is asking for that 40-foot maximum to be increased due to contributing walls towards side yard wall articulation. And we can come back to this if needed. And then these images kind of show qualifying walls. So tonight, what the board is considering specifically is a side yard wall articulation variance request. And that's for a span of approximately 67 feet, where 40 feet is the maximum allowance, and approximately 33 feet exists today. And the little arrows, so I circled the 14-foot setback, and there is already a dashed line. So anything below or closer to the east property line, this is turned to the side, so north is right, would have to count towards that 40-foot maximum if it's more than 14 feet tall. So as the house was designed 10 plus years ago, around 33 feet of the walls do contribute towards that 40-foot maximum. So there was no issue because it's below that 40-foot maximum. With the proposed additions to the home, as has been detailed within the application materials, that is increasing to 67 feet for reasons that were detailed within the application materials. And the little green arrows I showed are kind of pointing to the separate additions. There's about 3 or 4, or actually 4 different additions or fill-ins on the upper story. And the left arrow that you see right here, you can see it's below that 14-foot line. It's taller than 14 feet, which means it contributes. And then we also have this little middle, the third from the left arrow. It's also within 14 feet, rises more than 14 feet, which means it also contributes to that 40-foot. So with all of the contributing, you see the addition right here where my cursor is, that is behind the 14-foot marker, which means it does not contribute. And the same with this little, the right arrow right here, it is behind that 14-foot marker, which means it does not contribute. So these 2 areas or additions right here are what's resulting in the need for a variance. And total contributing wall is going to be around 67 feet, where again, 40 feet is the maximum allowance and 33 feet exists today. And again, we can come back to this if the board needs any more explanation. And then this is a lot, all of this information was provided within the application materials, but I just kind of wanted to have it, at hand in case the board wanted to look at anything. But the image on the screen is the existing upper and the proposed lower second floor plan. These are not necessarily impacted by the variance at hand, these are impacted by it. And the proposed first floor and the basement are not impacted by it. And then we also have the existing upper and the proposed lower east elevation. Again, the east elevation is the elevation where this variance is taking place. And this is the most impacted by the view from the property to the east. And you can see right here, we have the area of addition. And then right here, we have another area of addition. And then the upper image shows where kind of those voids are, where that addition is either stepped further back or it's just not there in general. And the purpose of this addition is to kind of connect the upper story. Whereas right now, to get from one side of the upper story to the other, you would have to go downstairs and then back upstairs. And I'll let the applicant and representative kind of explain the logistics of that during their presentation. And then we also have the existing upper image, and then we have the proposed lower image of the west elevation. This is from J Street. And you can see that little fill-in on the lower image. That's that addition that's essentially connecting the 2 upper story sections of the home. And then we have the existing upper and the proposed lower rear north, which is the left 2 images, and the front south, which is the right elevations. So the proposed south is essentially the proposed front of the house along College Avenue. And then the representative kindly provided some 3D renderings showing kind of a more visually easier to understand, at least for myself, view of the existing, which is the 2 upper, and the proposed, which is the 2 lower renderings of both the northeast and the southeast. And the southeast view, the lower right image, is showing essentially the east side of the home with the additions. So this is what will be seen pending tonight's variance outcome once the additions are all completed. So with that, staff is recommending support and approval of the variance request as it has been presented within BOZ 2026-00003. We do understand that even though the lot is not substandard in size, it does present some unique characteristics in terms of topography. And then also it's not necessarily wide, but it is very long, and side yard wall articulation impacts the sides of the property. Also, this property is blessed with 3 25-foot setbacks, south, west, and north, which is why it was built the way it was, essentially pushing all of the house to the east part of the property. This presents some development issues when it comes to standards like side yard wall articulation and bulk plane. The applicant was able to design the home to comply with bulk plane, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case for side yard wall articulation, which is why they are in front of you tonight. And then also we received quite a few letters of support from neighbors, especially the most impacted neighbor directly to the east and downhill from this. Visually, they were going to be impacted the most, and that support was provided. So with all of that, staff feels that all of criterion 1A, A through D, as well as criterion 5, A through D have been met. And again, staff is in support and recommending approval as it has been presented. I will leave it at that. I'm sure the applicant has a little more to say on this. And then if any of the board members have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Robbie. I'm so happy to have my script in front of me so that I can say, does the board have questions of staff? I have questions, but I don't need to lead. So who's next? And maybe just let me know. Katie, please. You're muted.
So, the way the house is configured now, like you had those two upper sections that aren't connected, and the addition is connecting them basically. So with the existing setup, do they each contribute independently to the side yard articulation, like or are they like they're like the existing height? Do you add that up and that equals the existing 33 feet? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, you are, and that's a good question. So as it's designed today, the contributing walls, so for both sections of the upper story as it sits today, some of them contribute, some of them don't for both sections.
Okay.
If it's set back at 14 feet or more, it does not contribute. But there are walls for both sections that do contribute. So it's kind of scattered in terms of it's not a consistent 33 feet. It's scattered amongst the two sections. And with the addition, the actual connecting part is not contributing, but there are other elements so they can make it more habitable for, a growing family or whatnot. Because of that, they are adding some contributing walls. So it's still going to be a little not uniform connected, but the way they've designed it was to keep the contributing wall as minimum as possible. Which is why that actual connecting part does not contribute. But there are other areas where they wanted rooms with more headspace that does result in a contributing wall. So right now it's kind of mix and match in terms of what contributes, but total it's 33 feet contributing. And then after all the additions, there's like 4 separate additions. It's going to be about 67 feet of contributing wall.
Okay. All right. That helps. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Craig?
Yeah, I had a question. So the sidewall side yard wall articulations can be approved by the city manager, right? This specific one can't be approved because of its lot size. Is that correct?
I believe so. So when the code says city manager, that essentially means staff or administratively, just
Yeah.
how it's worded. So you are correct. There are thresholds, just like with setback variances. We can only approve at an administrative or staff level if certain conditions are met, and lot size is one of those, like with bulk plane as well. We cannot administratively approve all side yard wall articulation variances. So if that's the case, then this automatically would have to go to BOZA for a public hearing.
Okay,
So
so
this
was
this one did not qualify for administrative. It had to go to BOZA.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So my question is a little bit historical to try to put some context to this. Back in the day when the bulk plane ordinance came into play and we started talking about sidewall articulation, I'd like to get a little clarification, Robbie, in terms of the idea was not to present so much mass and not to, as you read, the purposes, views and solar access and so on. And so I think that it's just a little bit hard from these visuals. You can see that there's a mass there. I'd like to better understand, and maybe a question for the applicant, as architect as well. But how, by approving this, we're not defeating the purpose. That's sort of a double negative, but I'd like to say, if we were to approve this, I'd like to feel like I wasn't violating those terms, but that I was working within the spirit of the statute, recognizing that the impact on others, which I mean, I don't have letters, but we have names, right, of people that are neighbors and so on who are in support. So I gather that it doesn't impact them, but it would be easier for me to understand if I understood that part a little better.
No, that's very valid. So you're right in that this was meant to kind of limit bulk, general bulk, form and bulk, and to protect views and privacy from neighboring properties. A lot like with bulk plane standards. And with this one, it comes down to what is out there today and what are they proposing and why. And the way staff looked at this to make sure that it still complies with kind of the purpose statement or the reason for the standard is that the only real change from the property to the east is going to be that little filled in area. And that wall actually does not even require a variance. That's not one of the contributing walls. Everything else that is contributing is just filling in what's already there. So the actual view is not going to be changing from any of the properties. And the one wall that you could argue is creating additional visual block does not require a variance.
That's super helpful for me. Thank you, Robbie. If there are no more questions for staff, we'd like the applicant to proceed with their presentation.
Sure. Give me just a second to get them access.
Thank you, Thomas.
Hi, thank you all for being here today and for having us. Is Tyler on the? Yes, I see Tyler. I think it would be great to have Tyler, who's the owner of this, start off our applicant presentation.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for taking the time to hear this application. Yeah, my name is Tyler. I own 505 College. If you haven't gathered by now from the images, it's a sort of peculiar container house that, if you've ever driven by it, you probably know it. The previous owner built it and was challenged to stay within that set of those building envelopes. So that's why it kind of looks like a train from the outside. Sort of feels like living in a train as well. But yeah, I wanted to give a little bit of background and then kind of talk about at least the purpose just from me as an inhabitant standpoint, and then Lauren will cover the technical stuff that I'm not as up on. So yeah, I was actually born and raised in Boulder as sort of a byproduct of my parents meeting at CU in the mid 60s in organic chemistry class, which sounds like a movie setup and isn't really relevant to the house other than I loved growing up in Boulder. My life took me in other directions. And about 5 years ago, I moved back. And one of the things I wanted to do, I felt like Boulder was always pretty renowned for having some really interesting houses architecturally. And I fell in love with this house that was on the market. It's weird. Sometimes I'm weird. So I felt like that was a good match. But when I moved in, sort of my life situation was a little different. Since then, I've met someone that we're actually getting married this month. We plan to start a family. And so some of the characteristics of this house suddenly started looking quite a bit different. Most notably is, as kind of is pointed out, the way the house is built is the upper floor is comprised of 2 different containers that they dropped in, and they didn't connect them. I have no idea why. I wasn't involved in the original design. And so the primary bedroom is kind of on one side. I'm actually sitting in the other container right now, which is where my little home office is. And there's a fair amount of, you have to run down the stairs, walk all the way across the house, go up the other stairs to get to the bedrooms. Or if you're feeling brave in the middle of winter, you can run across the snow, which gets old pretty fast. So from a usability standpoint, I was really realizing this is not great for kind of the way life had changed. So reached out to HMH, Lauren here, and kind of started exploring like what could be done to this house. At first it was like, hey, here's kind of my dream scenario. Would really love to change quite a lot about the upper floor. But we very quickly started realizing that there was several variances to contend with in the sort of dream remodel scenario. So what Lauren helped us do is pare it back to like, what is the minimum that could be done to really connect these containers? With the idea that we're sleeping in one of them and the children are in another. And we sort of came up with this design, which Lauren can explain, I guess, the variances, but that really only required this sidewall articulation variance. And and this really just comes down, so the goal there was kind of what is the minimum, because we didn't feel like it was a very likely chance of success to come and say, hey, we want variances in like 3 different areas. We also wanted to consider the neighbors' impact. We're really lucky. Shri and myself, my partner, are really lucky to have a great relationship with the neighbors. And so we were cognizant of not wanting to, do something that would change things from their point of view. And I think we might have a couple neighbors on the call here. I don't know if they'll get a chance to speak, but they can explain their side of it. And so that was sort of our goal is how do we make this more usable? And I think the real key thing is, although we could drop a hallway sort of by cutting out the wall of this one container and the other and stay within the area that doesn't require variance, it doesn't actually really work, because sort of then like the room I'm in right now suddenly really wouldn't be a room. So I think Lauren can expand on that. And so, yeah, just kind of our situation is, while we could move, we love living here. I like being the caretaker to this odd house, other than the fact that sometimes people meet me and think I'm the person that lived here before, which isn't great because apparently they weren't as popular. But, we're really lucky to have great neighbors, great neighborhood. We have views up here. It's a really great part of town. I grew up in North Boulder, but I've fallen in love with this area. So that's kind of the color behind how we ended up with this request. And I guess I'll hand off to Lauren, but I'm happy to answer any more questions that are helpful from just the owner standpoint.
Thank you. Lauren, you can unmute and proceed, please.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you everyone for your service. I know that takes a lot of time and effort, and it really helps benefit the city. So thank you. As Tyler was saying, when we began this project, what we were looking at was a fairly modest improvement to the upper level. We really wanted to create a connection between the 2 sides of this house. And to do that basically entirely within the footprint of the first level. We're not, as Robbie said, increasing the building coverage at all. And even our first iteration of this, that was an addition of about 600 square feet. And when we looked at that, compared to the zoning standards, we found that sort of an unusually high level of non-compliance for a relatively small addition. That initial design would have required 3 separate exemptions: a 25-foot shadow where only 15 was permitted, 19-foot bulk plane projection where 12 is allowed, and 70-foot side wall yard, that contributing wall where only 40 is permitted. And that's because this site, while it's not an unusual width, the 50 feet, you take out 25 for the side yard setback and 5 for the other side, you end up with a maximum of a 20-foot buildable area on the first level. And then when you look at the second level, that gets pared back even more with this 14-foot side yard articulation to being an 11-foot wide buildable area. And in addition, the way the bulk plane works and the solar shadow being forced up against the east side property line makes it, which is where the solar shadow is most restrictive, because the hill is going down really steeply. So it's very easy. A small increase in height just has a huge impact on your shadow. So we looked really carefully and tried to thread the needle to find a way to connect these sides without, and really try and minimize the number of exemptions that we needed. As Robbie has said, the actual connection between the two halves is by right. So you might ask, why do we need an exemption at all in order to connect these two halves? And that's because in that 11 feet wide area, it's basically impossible to have a hallway and a bedroom. The combination of those two things is wider than 11 feet. So basically your exterior walls each add up to 18 inches. You have a 3-foot wide hallway, 4.5 inches for another interior wall. And you get, just over 6 feet. A standard queen bed is 5 feet wide. So you end up not even having enough room to have like a side table on one side of a bed. So basically, to have the hallway connect the two sides and to have the hallway pass by rooms connecting the two halves of the house, you have to have a house that's wider than 11 feet. We've really tried to minimize where those rooms project beyond the bulk plane. They're sort of a substandard height at the wall edge, which you can see in those 3D images. The roof angles down before it hits the outside edge wall. So the height above 14 feet has been minimized. And again, we're just trying to get sort of 2 functional rooms on each side of the hallway so that we can have a primary suite that has a closet and a bathroom, and then 2 bedrooms on the other side, which is the same number of rooms, the same types of rooms as previously existed, but just with the additional hallway connecting them. I think also sort of speaking to that visibility, the portion of the addition that contributes to the non-compliance is really not very visible from a public street. And even from neighboring properties, because like Robbie was mentioning, different portions of this house contribute to the side yard wall bulk already. And we are breaking up still the portions of the wall that contribute to that. I don't think an average layperson would walk by and even sort of understand how this project is in non-compliance. And so I think that it really does still meet the existing neighborhood expectations of what the house looks like. It still breaks up the mass really substantially by having setbacks within that upper level. And so while it might not meet the technical requirements, we have really attempted to meet the intention of the side yard wall articulation requirements. So yeah, I think we've worked really hard to make it so that what we're requesting, while it sounds like a large number, is functionally like not that much of an exemption. As Robbie talked about before, there's an existing 33 feet that are non-compliant. Those only extend 9 inches beyond that 14-foot. So walking by, you would never know that those 33 feet are sort of are stepping into the 14-foot setback, because we're just not that attuned to measurement walking down a street. So the existing portion that steps into the setback is essentially non-noticeable. And then we've worked hard to reduce the impact of the section that we're adding.
Thank you, Lauren.
Happy to answer any questions. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, so thank you for your presentation, both of you. We appreciate your time and explanation. Does anyone on the board have questions for the applicant or the applicant's architect? Okay. So if there are no questions for the applicant, do we have citizens who are here interested in commenting on the application? If we do, I have some rules, but is that a yes, Robbie? Okay. So for those of you who are listening, please understand that all speakers need to speak into the, so that we can record what you're saying, give your name and address, and do they need to be up here as well, Deshawn?
No, I believe our public hearing testimony is only limited to audio as well.
Okay, thank you. And then all comments should be addressed to the hearing body, should be relevant to the application, and should not be of a personal nature. They have 3-minute time limit. Is that right, Deshauna?
That is correct.
Please avoid repetitive comments. So if we've already heard it, please try to refrain from proceeding in that direction. And then any unruly behavior, which probably doesn't apply here, but such as booing or hissing or harassing remarks, is prohibited. So to that end, Thomas, if you would please introduce the first speaker.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, we do have 2 raised hands in the audience list. First up, we'll have Susan Osborne. Susan, if you could also please introduce yourself when you begin speaking, that would be great. And again, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and you can go ahead and begin now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, oh, good. So my name's Susan Osborne, and my husband and I own the property downhill from Tyler's wonderful house. And our address is 525 College Avenue. And as I'm talking to you, I'm looking out the window of my study at a corner of the house that's proposed for a change. And we've gone over the changes with Tyler. I think Lauren was extremely sensitive to any impact on us. And the truth of the matter is, as close as we are, there's virtually no impact to us. Our primary view is to the south. It's really not affected by the changes that are being proposed. The house itself is wonderful and interesting, and we have a lot of trees and between our property and a raised terrace between right against the property line to the west, and so really have no problem at all with this project, and in fact really love it and appreciate the fact that Tyler and Cherie are looking at changing their relationship and family, and look forward to seeing that, and hopefully you'll support this project. I would also add, I was in the planning department for 22 years and was part of writing this ordinance originally, and so it's kind of interesting to be on this other side of things. But my husband and I fully support this project, and hope you'll vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And next up, we have Lisa Spalding. Lisa, you will have 3 minutes, and you can go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you. It's Lisa Spalding. My husband's name is Thomas Oyano, and we live directly across the street on J Street. We are up above the house, and we look directly onto the area that will be filled in, which I know that that's not a problem with permits or anything, but it's going to look so much better, and it's going to be practical. I mean, it was kind of crazy the way it was done to begin with. And I know that the landscaping is taken care of beautifully. The house is taken care of beautifully. I mean, we couldn't have better neighbors. And I know we aren't supposed to talk about anything personal, but we do have in this neighborhood now 6 kids, 5 of them under the age of 6. And we're looking forward to another. We're right a block from Flatirons Elementary School, and it's not a neighborhood without kids. So we would love to have this house functioning in a way that Cherie and Tyler can have a family and stay with us, because they're absolutely wonderful neighbors. Thank you.
Lisa, before you finish, can you please provide an address for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 1135 J Street. Sorry.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Lisa and Deshona. So are there any other public comment?
Those are our 2 attendees that we have in the audience, so I think we can go ahead and move on.
Thank you. Since there's no other public comment on this matter, it's open to the board for discussion. So I will ask you, those of you who wish to speak, to either physically raise your hand or do the hand raising so that we can discuss this. Who would like to start? Thank you, Drew. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot for the presentation. I fully understand the difficulties of this lot and the house. And when I look at it, a couple of things come to mind. Obviously, it's really nice that the connection between the spaces are by right? Going back to the intention of the side yard wall articulation. So that's not a part of it. The part that the rule is also supposed to prevent is a large bulk mass. And what, Lauren, you're getting at, and also the 3D visuals that you show, is that you're not actually creating this big bulk mass. You're having an interesting second floor with different depths. Additionally, the corner lot status preventing, basically taking away 25 feet of your side yard and leaving that 20 feet width. One of the stipulations in that code of the side yard wall articulation is that any lot less than 45 feet in width is not even subject to this rule, right? And so you sort of fall into that category as well. And so when I look at the criteria, I definitely feel that you meet, the physical circumstances of the lot. And additionally, I think it's very minimal. And so I could go through each piece, but I believe it meets all the criteria, and I would be in favor.
Thank you, Drew. Sean or Craig or Katie, any comments? You're not required, but if you have something, we'd appreciate it. Sean?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what Drew said, especially I think it meets criteria H1A1, in that it is a very shallow lot, which is not the only one in the neighborhood, but it's also on a corner, so it has basically a front yard setback on two of the sides. And because they built the house, the previous owners built the house um, to comply with those setbacks, it's pushed it way too close to the east property line, which is basically them being compliant is what's causing this other issue here. Um, and looking at the other direct neighbors, I would say this is very different than anything in their direct neighborhood area. So that would satisfy H1B. And then H1C, because I mean the original house was built almost like a game of Twister to try to comply with all of the different lot criteria. It's pretty much impossible to do anything else reasonable without um, running into this issue. So I would say it completes H1C there. And I also see, especially hearing the testimony from neighbors, it doesn't seem to really be negatively affecting any neighbors. So it complies with H1D. And then I also think it complies with all of H5, A through D. And then I'll also echo what Drew said about the actual ordinance. The purpose of that ordinance is to provide or to prevent just a solid single massing throughout the whole structure. But that's not the case with this. Like, even though it is technically um, bigger than the 40 feet, it's all various different step backs in the building. So, it's not really contributing to one single massing. So I'm inclined to approve based on all of that.
Thank you, Sean. And I know who I'm coming to ask to state the motion. So thank you for that degree of articulation. Katie or Craig, any comments?
I was just going to add that, it definitely sounds like it meets sort of like the spirit of the ordinance. And I think it speaks so well of the homeowner that they coordinated, very closely with their neighbors, and there's broad neighborhood support. So that goes a long way as well. It seems like sort of the ideal for how you'd want home renovations to go in terms of trying to shore up your neighbor's support and come up with changes that are as minimally in requiring variance as possible. So I'm very inclined to support as well.
Thank you. Craig?
Yeah, I have nothing to add apart from what, Drew, Sean, and Katie already said. But yeah, I think inclined to support as well. I think with homeowner support and kind of given the narrow lot size pushed as far to the east as possible, I think the unit will still look nice and kind of meets the spirit of it.
Thank you, everyone on the board. I think I would like to say that I appreciate the explanations both from Robbie, the homeowner, and the architect to help me to understand the spirit, not just the structure. And I think it's very helpful to recognize that the areas are we're not creating, like as has been stated, a huge mass. We're really just re-articulating the walls and in a way that is not negatively impacting anyone. And obviously this hardship was not created by the owner. It was created by the owner before. I think there are a few of us who want to run up two separate staircases to get to the bedroom. And clearly this would not be practical with children. So never mind just anybody living in the house. So I think that sounds like from the conversation with each board member, we have broad approval for this. And so may I go to you, Sean, and ask you to propose a motion on this?
Yeah, hopefully I get this all right. I will make a motion to approve BOZ 2026-00003. And Deshauna, let me know if I need to add anything to that motion.
I second.
I think Deshauna, does he need to articulate the reasons, or is it okay to just state it that way?
Based on the conversation on the record, it's sufficient just to make the motion without any additional detail.
Thank you. We have a second, and so in order, we have to do it one at a time. So all those in favor, so I'll call you out by name. Drew,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So, thank you for your time. Your request has been granted, and we look forward to seeing the modified building sometime in the future. Good luck with your family plans and marriage, and thanks for coming to us.
Thank you so much for hearing us out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all.
So at this time, we can close the hearing on this item because the application was approved as submitted, and move in. You have minutes from the prior meeting. I was not at the prior meeting except for a brief midnight appearance from Europe. So I need someone else to have who was there to submit the motion for approval of the prior minutes. And by the way, Lauren and Tyler, you're welcome to leave at any time. Thank you. But you can stay. We're happy to have you here.
I can make a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes.
In a second.
I
Oh, you
second that
second it?
motion.
Yep.
We'll take one of those seconds. Sean, maybe.
I'll second approval of the May 12th, 2026 BOZA meeting minutes.
Thank you, Sean. And then again, we need a round of ayes for the people that were there. I'm abstaining. So Katie,
Aye.
Drew,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
great.
Aye.
Thank you very much. What other matters from the board do we have? If any?
I guess there's a separate call for matters from staff because Robbie, you had wanted to talk about the retreat potentially.
Yeah, we have.
Correct. Yeah, and I'll bring that up during the PNDS part.
So, Deshauna, do you have any other matters from the city attorney?
I do not. Thank you.
So that does bring us to other matters from staff. And yes, we have to talk about the retreat. So I turn it back over to you, Robbie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So real quick, yesterday was the application deadline for the July 14th meeting. And as of today, we are anticipating one, possibly two moving forward to the July meeting. So looks like we're going to have a meeting on the 14th here in a little over a month. And I will provide updates as needed. But yeah, like always, if there are any anticipated absences, please let myself or just everybody know in general. That way we can ensure that we have a quorum and hopefully a full board. And beyond that, regarding the retreat, there's still not a date finalized, but at the last meeting, and Jill, I don't believe you heard this part. I was just asking from board members if there are any specific topics that you would like for us to go over. We haven't finalized any details in any way. This is still very preliminary. We're kind of waiting to see what other boards and commissions are doing, and not everybody has done theirs yet. I believe most have not done theirs yet. And BOZA's, in typical fashion, my hope is for it to be very laid back, casual, kind of catered to this board specifically. But a part of that is now is an opportunity for us, staff, to go over anything specific that you as board members would like for us to. It can be legal. I'm assuming Deshauna would still go over some legal stuff in general as a refresher, but if there's anything specific that you would like for any of us to go over, if you want Thomas to go over something specific, now's your opportunity. I don't need topics today if you have any, but I would say maybe before the next meeting, just go ahead and email me some ideas if you have any. If you don't, no worries. But now's the opportunity for us to kind of go over a specific land use standard that you might want a refresher on or kind of more information on. So that's kind of it. I would say just go ahead and feel free to email me before the July meeting. My hope is that come time of the July meeting that I will have a little more information in terms of when we want to do this and kind of the format it's going to be. And then also I'm going to throw out there, would you, all 5 of you board members, would you like for this to be in person? Would you like for it to be virtual? Again, it's going to be very laid back. It's kind of catered to you, our current board members. So if you all decide that we want this to be virtual, we'll do that. If most of you want it to be in person, just as something kind of different, we'll definitely make that happen as well. So just kind of throw ideas my way, especially any topics that you would like for any of us staff members, not just myself, to go over. And that's kind of it.
Can I respond now?
Of course.
Couple
I
things.
will make notes.
So when we do a retreat, is that done in the context of a meeting and there's not a social aspect to it, right? You can't go to dinner or do something. We have to meet in a room or virtually. Is that correct?
That is, it doesn't actually have to be. The last one we had in 2019, and Jill, I believe you were at that one.
Yes, but I can't remember.
I was at that one too. It was done as a separate thing. Whether or not it was actually the night of a scheduled meeting, I don't recall, but we did have to post it. It is a quorum. I believe, and Deshauna, you can correct me on this, does it need to be made public if it's a kind of a retreat for the board and not tied to an agenda? And even if it was tied to an agenda, like if we did this after a light agenda, would it still be open to the public?
Yes, the public would still need to have the opportunity to listen in, even though they would lack the ability to participate.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's kind of up in the air. I was assuming we were just going to attach it to an agenda and hope that it was a light agenda. Likely early fall, late summer, early fall is when I was originally shooting for. But I believe if the board, and I'm sorry, Deshauna, I'm going to lean on you again. If the board wanted to do something not sitting at a table or on a screen, I believe we can do that. We still have to post it. It's still a quorum. But also we won't have computers and documents, so it might be a little harder to do some training if we do that approach. So I was hoping for kind of a round table, either in person or virtually, possibly attached to an agenda if it's a light agenda. If not, if there's like no agendas that all 5 members can attend for the rest of the year, we might have to have a special meeting. We'll post for that. It'll still be a quorum. It just won't be attached to an agenda and possible variance items. So very up in the air. It kind of depends on what we land on and how that agenda looks, really. And if the board wants to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, which I'm assuming may not be the case, then we'll make that happen. It's really up to you. This is for you.
And topically, I think I saw an announcement that the 20-year community plan, zoning plan, design plan is about to be finalized. And I've been traveling quite a bit, so I don't think I've seen what that consists of. I think that since I started on this board, there's been a substantial shift in a focus on more housing. When I started, that was definitely not the focus. So I think it might be nice to talk historically about where we've been and where we're headed, and how that document may influence BOZA moving forward. So that's kind of the thought I have about topic.
Okay, that's great. And if I need to bring in non-BOZA staff to kind of go over some things, we can definitely do that. So thank you, Jill.
Okay. So I don't know if anyone else has any comment on that. We've now gone through everything and other matters. Are there any Anything else anyone needs to say, or can we adjourn?
I had one quick potential topic, which was like, I don't know if you could list maybe like the top three variances that happen. I know I've only been on for a couple of months, but I think that that'd be kind of useful to see like the top three variances and like why they're variances, if that makes sense. And if there isn't a common pattern, that's okay too.
It's a
Great.
fair question.
Thank you. Very.
Andrew,
Yeah, so actually my wife is due with a baby July 17, so may or may not show up at July 14. So just FYI. So don't count on me. And then for my question for Robbie is I feel like we have a lot of applications that clearly are going to get passed, right? And so going back to the administrative variance, how do we streamline the process for applicants, reduce cost? How could we change our rules to allow more administrative variances? And so that, I mean, that's pretty open-ended. So maybe kind of building up what Craig is getting at is like, what are the common variances? What always gets passed? And can we codify that somehow? I mean, it's a big task, but I think it'd be nice for people to have that more consistency and not have the risk of going to BOZA.
Great. Thank you, Drew.
I agree. Anyone else before we go? Thanks, everybody, for your contribution to the city and the board. Good to see everyone. And the meeting is now adjourned.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Bye.